Okay, so let's get crack-a-lacking. We are going to be looking at how to release guilt and regret. And the way I'm going to do that is, even if there is no one live joining us, I am going to continue talking because these videos will be available afterwards. So we're going to look at how to release or how to free ourselves from guilt and regret after our partner dies, because I think these are certainly emotions and feelings that lots of people have mentioned to me that they struggle with. So I wanted to deal with it, and we're going to look at kind of three kind of different areas, three different ways that we can possibly learn to um, release guilt and regret. And I want to talk about a concept or a principle that was shared with me once, and that principle is that um, whenever we learn about something, we can move, we can grow, we can move forwards. So I want to give you a real firm example of this, and just run through this with me in your mind. So just imagine that you are perhaps at work. So imagine you're at work, and um, you'll see where this fits in. You'll see absolutely where this little analogy fits in once I've gone through it. So imagine you're at work and you have a big disagreement with the boss or someone at work, and an argument starts and you start shouting at one another. And you know how those arguments go. One person says something and the other person kind of raises it, and then the other person raises it, and bing, 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 just goes up and up and up and up. So we're imagine that you're at work and you've had this huge row, this huge argument. And so you now have to, this is at the end of the day, imagining it's the end of the day, you now have to leave the office and drive home. So you stomp out of the boss's office or out of your office, slam the door, and you start effing and jeffing and, really angry, like, oh, what on earth was going on? Oh, this is disgusting. I can't believe they said that. Wow. And they get more and more wound up. And then you stomp down the stairs of the office, and you stomp out of the office, and you're still stamping your feet, and you get in the car and you slam the door of the car, and you're driving home and you're angry. And then you get home and you slam the door of your house. Oh, I can't believe we had that. So you get this kind of picture. Now, I want to retell that story, but this time what we're going to do, the only difference is that we're going to learn something from it. We're going to learn something from that emotion of anger. And this is what we can do when we can apply this to releasing guilt and regret. But let's look at that little story again about releasing anger. So, same scenario, we're at work and we have the discussion with the boss, and it goes up and up and up and up. We get angry, exactly the same. We're angry, we're frustrated, we're annoyed. We storm out the office, we slam the door, we stomping down the corridor. Everything is exactly the same as the first scenario. But this time we say to ourselves, what I just wonder, what can I learn from that? What can I learn from this fight that we've just had in the office? And I might say, well, actually, what I can learn is it went up and up and up and up and up. So I wonder if I could learn that next time, perhaps I could be a bit more responsive in a different way and actually maintain a bit of control, so this argument doesn't escalate out of control. Perhaps that's one thing that I could learn. I could think, well, hang on a minute. When I said so and so and so and so, my boss responded, and it didn't sound like actually they responded in the right way. They kind of went off on a different tangent. I wonder if they actually understood what I meant. Did I? And then when they said X, Y, Z, I'm just wondering now, did I interpret that the right way? So I might then say, well, actually, what I could learn from that is next time I have an argument with the boss, is if I don't understand something that he says or she says, I might say, hang on a minute, could you just clarify that? I'm not quite sure. And I might also learn, perhaps I could take ownership of how I communicate, and I might communicate a bit better next time if I'm in this argument. And now in that scenario, where's the anger? That anger that we had, where is it? And it kind of goes, doesn't it? It kind of gets dissipated. And that is a really good learning when we learn from our emotions. And the example I gave from anger, when we learn from that anger of having that argument, the anger dissipates. And it's the same with other emotions. Grief, it's the same. When we learn from it, when we say, well, what can I learn from this? And in some ways, depending on where you are in your journey, depending on where you are, it may be possible to be able to say, oh, grief, hello, welcome back in my life today. I wasn't expecting you today, didn't really want you today, but okay, so you're here. I feel terrible. Grief, welcome back into my life. What can I learn from you today? And I just wonder if we could say things like that, how we could move forwards and actually find that the grief can start to dissipate slightly. We take the sting out of it when we learn. And regret and guilt, I think, are exactly the same things. We can use that same strategy and that technique. So if we feel this intense regret and this intense guilt, ask ourselves, what can I learn from it? What can I learn from this regret? What can I learn from the guilt? So that's the first strategy I wanted to share with you. Learning makes a massive difference. If you'd like to comment, please feel free to make a comment, and I can then read out any questions that you have. And if you really like this channel and you find it useful, you should also see a little button on the live stream that says super thanks, and you can send a super thanks of an amount of money. What this goes towards is paying my costs of running the website, keeping the website going, hosting fees. So if you would like to send a super thanks, that would be absolutely amazing. And I can put that £1.99, £2.99, whatever it is, whatever you send, I can put that money towards paying for some of the hosting to keep this going. And if you join as a member, there is a little join button as well. If you join as a member, you get extra special emojis that you can use in the comments, which makes it even extra special. So the second thing I want to look at is it's called a presupposition. I'm just trying to think. I'm stuttering because I'm trying to think of the best way to explain it. So this is called a presupposition, and it's a presupposition of NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. So I am a master NLP coach, and I used neuro-linguistic programming to really help me throughout my grief journey. I use it in all aspects of life. But I just want to explain this, what we call presupposition, because these can be really useful and really helpful, and they are ways of looking at the world. And very often, you know, we change the way we look at something. We look at something from a different perspective, different viewpoint, and actually we can make massive changes in our life. So NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, has some presuppositions, and these presuppositions are not true necessarily, but we find that they are very useful if we act as if they are true. And an NLP presupposition is: everyone is doing the best they can with the resources they have available to them at that given moment. So I'll say it again. Everyone is doing the best that they can with the resources that they have available to them at that given moment. Now, this can be useful in a real life situation. If we're having an argument with a boss, an argument with a friend, an argument with a child, and we're kind of getting frustrated in that argument, just bear in mind that person's doing the best they can with the resources that they have available to them. And we are as well. You know, sometimes we get into arguments because we don't have the resource of compassion, the resource of understanding, a resource of being able to listen, a resource of being able to be calm, a resource of being able to take away the anger. Some people can't do that. And so they get into these arguments and they get into these fights. So it's very useful to remember that everyone is doing the best they can with the resources they have available to them in everyday life and in our lives. So think back to a time when you felt, or when you look back on, you reflect and you feel that regret. I regret that I did X, or I regret that I didn't do X. If it's guilt that's your concern, think back to a time when you did that thing you look back on now and you think, I feel guilty about that. So now we have you today and we have you in the past. And what the you of today can do is to look to the you of the past, and you can say, you there, in the past, you did the best that you could with the resources that you had available to you. And today, I might make a very different decision, because today I have very different resources available to me today. I may have resources of calmness. I may have resources of compassion. I may have resources of being able to listen to someone else. But that time in the past, when I look through today's lens, I have regret or I have guilt. At that time, I clearly did not have access to those same resources that I have today. And the next question is, can the today forgive my yesterday person, forgive that person and say, do you know what? I wouldn't have done it like that, mate. I really wouldn't have done it like that. And have I had my time over, knowing what I know now, I would not do it like that. But do you know what? You are forgiven because you did the very best that you could. It may not be good enough by today's standards, but back then, I did the best I could, and you did the best you could. And it can even look to the future, and I can say, right, today I'm doing the best I can, and I can live happily knowing I'm just doing the best I can with what I've got available to me. It may be that in the future I get to that future me and look back and I might have regret or guilt, and I might think back, you idiot, why did you do that? Why did you do this? But I'm doing the same thing. I'm judging that past self by standards, by resources that this past self doesn't have yet. I can't act today in any other way other than the way that I can act today. And I think when we can adopt that viewpoint to be able to look back at our past self and say, you did the best you could with the resources you have available. Well done. I'm going to give a pat on the back. Well done. And it might not be what I would do today. In fact, it most likely wouldn't be what I do today. But I can forgive myself because I did the best that I could. And the third thing, and this is the final thing, and remember, you can comment on this stream. I would love to hear any comments that you have. You can comment on this stream. So let me know what you think. Feel free to ask questions. And remember, if you like this channel and you like this stream, please do feel free to give a super thanks. So there's a little button that says thanks, and you can donate a tiny amount of money, whatever you like. And I put that towards the hosting fees for the website and keeping these things going. So the third thing I want to look at is we all have that internal voice. You know, if you just said to yourself, no, I don't have that internal voice, that is the internal voice. So we all have this internal voice. We all have these this conversation with ourselves, this person sitting on our shoulder, Pinocchio's conscience always sat there and talked to Pinocchio. It's that we all have it. We all have that person sitting there on our shoulders. And I think the first stage is, well, actually, very often it's not us that has the regret and the guilt. It's this little voice that goes, you should have guilt about this. You should regret doing that. You should have done it in a different way. If you'd have done that, then that wouldn't have happened. If you hadn't have done this, then this wouldn't have happened. It's that little voice nagging us. Stage one is to recognize that we have a voice. Yep, we have a voice. Stage two is to say, well, what purpose does that voice serve? And most of the time, that voice is there to keep us safe. Now, it might not feel like it. It might feel very abusive. It might say very damaging things to us, and it can say very damaging things. But it often can say very damaging things because it wants to keep us safe. So you're not good enough. You can't do that. It can be very damaging things for our little internal voice to say to us. But actually, it could just be trying to keep us safe. Don't do that, because if you do that, that's dangerous. And that little internal voice may have its moral compass a little bit slightly wrong, may not actually be saying what is good for us, but it thinks it is. So it's always there to keep us safe. And what I want to do is, if you do have this little voice that talks to you a lot and it says negative things like, you should have done that, you really should have done this, or you should have done that in the past, you shouldn't have done that. Here's a little trick. What you can do is, that little voice is just to close your eyes and identify, where is that voice? So where is it? Do you, when you hear that voice, is it behind you, above you, to the left, to the right? Where is that voice? And now take that voice and put the voice on the end of your finger. So the voice is there talking on the end of your finger. And then take that little voice and give it a stupid voice. So if it's the voice of your parent, which very often that little voice that talks over here very often is. If it was the voice of your parent, maybe your own voice, but whoever's voice it was, give it a really stupid voice. You know, one of those high-pitched, squeaky Disney voices. And now listen to it or watch it on the end of your finger with a high-pitched, squeaky voice saying, you should have done that. It feels so different, doesn't it? It feels so completely different when we take control and put that voice on the end of our finger. And that just shows that we can control this little internal voice that quacks away at us all of the time. So they are my three top tips for dealing with regret and guilt. Very quick summary. The first thing is to learn. When we learn from our emotions, remember the story that I told about when we get angry? If we learn from that anger dissipates. If we learn from our regret and our guilt, we will find that it dissipates. What can I learn from this emotion? Which actually, I know I didn't say this, and I'm saying it in a summary, but actually is really important, because it means that if we push our emotions to the side and don't engage with our emotions, we can't learn. And if we can't learn, the emotion keeps coming back. So if we have a painful emotion, we do need to turn towards it, say, hello, grief, today. What do you want me to learn? If we don't turn towards it, we will keep it hidden. So that's the first thing, is to turn towards the pain and learn from it. The second thing is to bear in mind that this presupposition, everyone is doing the best they can with the resources they have available to them at that given moment. So you were doing that time in the past where you look back on yourself and you say, I should have done that, or I shouldn't have done that. You were doing the very best that you could at that time. And today you're doing the best that you are possible or was capable of doing today. And you maybe, when you look into the future and your future self looking back on yourself today, you might go, you should have done this differently. But today you are doing the best you can, and that's all you can do. And then the third thing is to recognize that little voice, and that little voice can be manipulated. We don't always have to listen to it. So there you go, how I would deal with releasing regret and guilt. So just two more things to say. If you really like this video, please do feel free to give us a super thanks. That just sends a very tiny amount of money my way so that I can pay for hosting on the website and keep all of this running. So a super thanks would be really, really appreciated. And I want to say three things actually. The second thing I want to say is please subscribe to the channel. Then you get notified when these go live. And the third thing is the next one we're going to do, the next live we're going to do, look at my notes, is in 2 weeks. It's on the 19th of November. And we are going to look at relationships, more relationships, of getting into a relationship with someone else after our partner has died, and the conflict that we may feel. How do we deal with that conflict? Is there a conflict when we have a new partner? So that is the 19th of November, same time, 7:30 p.m. UK time, which I think is 2:30 p.m. Eastern time, 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. So thank you so much. I will see you next time. Cheers now. Bye.